These are some of the most powerful women in history, iconic queens who ruled kingdoms and left their mark on the course of human events. But what if I told you they stank? That's right, these royal ladies were anything but squeaky clean. Let's dive into the surprising dirt on these 4 filthy rich queens. Number 4. Isabella, the First of Castile. When it comes to the epitome of old-school royalty, Isabella the First of Castile was the real deal. Queen Isabella is best known for her marriage to Ferdinand II of Aragon, uniting Spain under their rule in 1469 and kick-starting the Spanish Inquisition. But Isabella's story has a rather pungent footnote: her extreme anti-bathing habits. It was during the Reconquista period, the campaign to reclaim the Iberian Peninsula from Muslim rule, when Isabella took an extreme vow. For 9 years, from 1476 to 1485. She reportedly neither bathed nor changed her undergarments. A truly remarkable feat for someone living in 15th century Spain. That's right, Queen Isabella allegedly went almost a decade without a bath. You heard it here first. But why would someone in such a position of power subject herself to such, well, pungent practices? The answer lies in a combination of religion and politics. During this time, Isabella saw the Reconquista as a holy mission, and one way she expressed her devotion was through self-mortification. By refusing basic hygiene practices, she identified herself with Christ's suffering and affirmed her commitment to their shared Christian purpose. This wasn't a casual or private affair. She did it all for the glory of God and in plain view of her court. Imagine attending a royal council meeting with your Queen Rican of Vel. You can imagine, this wasn't about modesty or Her undergarments were part of her public persona, a visible display of her piety. Now, one might wonder about the practicalities of such a lifestyle. How did she manage? Well, managing. And I know if Isabella actually held to this extreme practice for the full 9 years. It's possible that accounts have been exaggerated over time. However, her reputation for extreme austerity and holiness was well established during her lifetime, so there's likely some truth to these fascinating stories. No. 3. Marie Antoinette. Renowned as the last queen of France before the French Revolution, Marie Antoinette's life was a whirlwind of luxury, love, and ultimately tragedy. Born an Austrian she married King Louis XVI at the tender age of 14 and quickly found herself at the heart of the French court. But beyond the powdered wigs and opulent gowns, there was a stark reality lurking beneath the surface. Marie Antoinette's hygiene practices were, shall we say, unconventional. The young queen bathed very infrequently, making the experience a rare and public affair. On those occasions, when she did bathe, she insisted on having her glass-enclosed bathing area placed in the middle of her bedroom, ensuring everyone could witness her ablutions. Talk about an intimate moment, but that's not all. She preferred to cover herself in alcohol or vinegar-soaked cloths instead of a traditional scrub. And let's not get started on her towering hairstyles, which were masterpieces of extravagance but rarely, if ever, washed. Picture this: Marie Antoinette reclining in a gilded bathtub surrounded by courtiers, while servants douse her in alcohol instead of soap and water. Now, while this may sound shocking today, it was not unheard of in the 18th century. Bathing was seen as something to be witnessed and even participated in by the elite. The concept of personal hygiene was still evolving, and the use of alcohol and vinegar was believed to purify the skin without the perceived messiness of water. As for her elaborate wigs, well, they were considered part of her regalia, symbols of her status, rather than personal adornment. Keeping them pristine white was more important than ensuring they were clean. The result? An intoxicating mix of floral waters, alcohol, and sweet oils permeated her court, creating a cloying atmosphere that might have masked odors, but was hardly a substitute for proper hygiene. Behind closed doors, however, the reality was far less fragrant. The palace walls were likely coated with grime, chamber pots overflowed, and the stench of stale waste lingered, mixing with the perfume to create a complex bouquet. For Marie Antoinette, it was more than just a fashion statement. It was a reflection of an era where hygiene was public, messy, and more about appearances than cleanliness. Number 2. Elizabeth I. Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen who reigned over England from 1558 to 1603. Her legacy is one of strength, resilience, and a little bit of weirdness, especially when it came to her hygiene routine. Elizabeth was known for her peculiar habits and preferences, but perhaps none were more unusual than her aversion to bathing. Yep, you heard it right. The Queen of England didn't wash herself for most of her adult life. Now, you might be thinking, how did she manage to stay fresh? Well, Elizabeth's personal care routine was a bit different. Instead of taking a dip in the tub, she relied on frequent changes of linen to signal her cleanliness. That's right, the Queen changed her undergarments multiple times a day, ensuring she always smelled as though she were freshly laundered. Talk about commitment to appearances. But why did she avoid bathing? Well, it wasn't because she didn't understand its importance. Elizabeth knew that good hygiene was essential for a healthy life, but she was also deeply influenced by the medical beliefs of her time. Doctors at the time believed that water opened the pores and allowed illness to enter the body, so bathing was seen as risky business. Instead, they recommended frequent changes of clothes, especially linen next to the skin, as a safer way to maintain cleanliness. Elizabeth took this advice to heart, developing a routine that kept her clothed in freshly laundered linen. She may not have scrubbed up in the tub, but she sure smelled like she did. But this wasn't just about avoiding illness. There was also a practical aspect to consider. Water was not easily accessible in 16th century England. Baths were rare luxuries, and public baths were even more uncommon. So Elizabeth likely didn't see bathing as a realistic option. Instead, she opted for the next best thing, lots and lots of clean linen. For Elizabeth, it wasn't just about her own hygiene. It was about setting an example for her court. By adhering to the medical advice of her day, she demonstrated the latest thinking on personal health. And by frequently changing her linen, she ensured her court followed suit. After all, if the queen didn't wash, why should anyone else bother? Number 1. Catherine de' Medici. Catherine de' Medici, born into the Italian Medici dynasty, was a force to be reckoned with. At the tender age of 14, she left Florence to marry Henry II of France, eventually becoming the powerful queen mother to 3 children. But behind her glamorous facade and ruthless ambition lurked a peculiar secret, an intense fear of water that led to an extreme avoidance of bathing. Catherine de' Medici's aversion to water was no small quirk. It was a deeply rooted phobia that dictated not only her personal hygiene, but also the fashion and culture of the French court. Now, you might be wondering, how does one go about living without bathing? Well, Catherine certainly figured it out. She developed a complex ritual around her hygiene, one that involved layers of perfume to mask any unwanted odors. Instead of soap and water, she covered herself in exotic scents, a habit that not only made her smell divine, but also set the trend for perfumed gloves in French courts. That's right, gloves, not as a fashion accessory, but as a tool to combat body odor. Catherine was a firm believer in the power of scent, and she wasn't shy about sharing it with the world. Her influence was so profound that perfumed gloves became a staple of French court culture, a subtle nod to the queen's unique approach to hygiene. But why was Catherine so afraid of water? Historians speculate that her fear stemmed from a traumatic childhood experience, a fall into a freezing cold vat of wine during her youth. This event left her shaken and she never quite recovered her love for water. This fear wasn't just a personal quirk. It reflected a larger issue in 16th century France. Bathing was not widely practiced, and the queen's phobia was a microcosm of the broader attitudes towards hygiene. In a world without modern plumbing and scientific understanding of bacteria, Catherine's reliance on perfume was both a luxury and a necessity. It was a way to navigate a world without showers, toilets, or even basic soap and water. For Catherine, it wasn't just about covering up her scent, it was about conquering a fear that defined her life. And in doing so, she inadvertently shaped the fashion and culture of an era. And there you have it, a glimpse into the sometimes messy, sometimes stinky lives of some of history's most iconic queens. They may have been powerful, revered, and envied, but they weren't perfect. They laughed, they loved, they bathed, or rather didn't bathe. Their foibles and quirks make them more relatable, more human, and ultimately more fascinating. From Queen Isabella's decade-long bath boycott to Catherine de' Medici's glove fetish, these women defied expectations and embraced their unique lifestyles, oddities and all. They remind us that behind closed doors, even royalty was anything but divine. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe.